Welcome back, everyone. Today, we continue our journey through Annu Pandey's powerful second book, Keeping Faith Alive, as we dive into Chapter 11, The Crisis of Faith and Identity. In this episode, we explore one of the most emotionally intense stages of spiritual healing, the point where long held beliefs, trusted systems, and even personal identity begin to unravel. We'll be unpacking the inner conflict that emerges when people start questioning what they once believed without doubt and the emotional consequences that can follow. We'll also discuss the complexities people face when disclosing spiritual abuse, why some begin losing interest in beliefs they once valued deeply, and how intrusive thoughts, fear, and compulsive behaviors can appear during this process. Most importantly, we'll explore the difference between spiritual panic and genuine awakening, and what it takes to rebuild a healthy sense of identity after everything feels uncertain. This is a deep and honest conversation about disillusionment, healing, and discovering yourself. Let's begin. Hi, Jan.
I'm good, Siddharth. How are you?
I'm fine, and I hope you had a lovely weekend.
Yeah, it was good.
Awesome. All right, Anu, what does a true crisis of faith look like psychologically, and why can it feel so destabilizing to a person's identity and sense of reality?
The crisis of faith happens in an intermediate stage when you have lost something, your older belief system, and you haven't found a new one, and you don't even have an idea if a new one exists. If there is a stage that would come at some point when you will be able to establish relationship with God, you will be able to find yourself, you'll again have an identity of yourself. So this place can be really scary. It's a really scary phase of life, and a lot of things happen as a result of the religious trauma that you have experienced in your toxic faith system. One of them is crisis of identity disruption. So the toxic belief system that you were a part of at one point, it wasn't just belief, it was your self definition. You used it to define yourself. It was like a lens through which you understood life, the philosophies, the beliefs, the ideologies. It was your lens through which you saw everything. Now, when it goes away, when you leave it, it creates a vacuum. And if this isn't real, that wasn't real, then who am I? You face an identity crisis because your identity got associated with the group, and the group isn't more. The faith system isn't anymore. So now you have problem understanding what I am now, who I am. Uh, it's like earth, ground disappearing from beneath your feet. You don't know where you stand anymore, and it can be really, really frightening. Also, so many negative emotions coming up at once, like shame, betrayal, grief, anger, fear, all coming up simultaneously. And since fears are so many types, the emotions are of so many types, the intensity is very high, they are coming very frequently, so the person becomes so overwhelmed, it becomes very difficult to sit with those emotions, to feel them at once. So nervous system gets into survival mode where the world does not feel like predictable, because you are afraid, you are also guilty, you are also ashamed, you are also feeling betrayal, you have grief. And so you are immediately surrounded by so many negative emotions that the world does not feel safe and predictable. So there is also a lot of emotional overload. This is also one of the psychological effects. Then cognitive dissonance. When you have beliefs or thoughts or values that contradict each other, one is coming from the old belief system, one you have found now. So the conflicting thoughts like loyalty versus doubt, devotion versus skepticism, they also cause a lot of internal confusion, internal conflict. So the brain, it struggles to reconcile the contradiction. And so, but they are there, the thoughts are there, the beliefs are there, and whether you actively want to reconcile them or not, but the brain on the background tries to reconcile them, so it exhausts you mentally. So the cognitive dissonance leads to a mental exhaustion. You feel so tired mentally that you do not want to use your intelligence or your brain or your emotion in anything. So on the outside the person might look fine, but when they are going through crisis of faith, they are very mentally exhausted. And then when you lose a community, it's not just you walk out of a building, you lose a lot of things that you had there. There is a lot of belongings, a lot loss of relationship, emotional support, the roles that you had there, the meanings that group provided you. You lose everything when you lose that old faith system. So it also, it's these losses are not some material tangible losses, but they are some losses that the person who is losing them can feel it. They can also
Mm.
feel the grief that comes with that loss. And last one is existential anxiety. Now you are standing, as I said in the beginning, you are standing in a place where you have lost everything that you have, and now you have nothing. Although when a person heals, that they can get back everything, they can reconnect with themselves, they can reconnect with society, they can also develop a relationship with God. But when someone is standing in this phase, they have no idea that there is a next phase also. So it's very frightening. There is existential anxiety. It creates a free fall like sensation, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It can be very scary. Old answers. So when you were in your previous faith system, you had some questions and they got answered with the teachings at that time that you received from the doctrines, the teachings, the philosophies. You had those answers, but now you know that all of that was a lie, that was built on a lie, it was built on manipulation. So now you don't believe in those answers, but the questions are there, still there. As I said, when you heal, you might get new answers, which would be more fulfilling, which would be more aligned with your personal philosophy, and which you can more relate to. But that phase hasn't come, and you don't know if that phase exists or not. So it can be very scary because you have this existential crisis, you have existential anxiety. You like, it's like you're free falling emotionally, psychologically, and especially spiritually. There is a lot of spiritual fear associated in this stage. So this is how the crisis of faith looks like, and how it feels. So this is why it feels so destabilizing. It creates so much of fear, confusion, and doubt and existential crisis.
Right, there's a comment for you here from Jitin Rishika here. A question, sorry. Hi, Anu. How does one's mind shift in an abusive environment, fighting for identity whilst being constantly taunted by a leader or priest whom we trusted the most?
If someone is still in that environment, the question says that one's mind shifts in an environment. So if the person is still in an environment, cognitive dissonance happens, because you, if you're fighting for identity, it means you have a belief that I should have my identity. You still have some of your values, you have your own choices, and you want to assert them. At the same time, you are being constantly taunted or coerced by a leader or priest whom you trusted the most. So it creates cognitive dissonance, because if you're still in the system, it means a part of you still believes in them. You're not yet ready to leave. Your mind, your body is not yet ready to leave. You might be struggling, you might be arguing at points, but a part of you still believes that, what if they are right? What if they are thinking in my favor? What if they are actually my well wishers? And that's why they're forcing me to be a certain way. You will carry two different beliefs. I want a life of where I can feel free, I have autonomy, I can make choices. But at the same time, you will carry another belief that maybe the kind of life that my leader expects from me is right for my spiritual life. Maybe I should be living this life, and maybe that's for my good. And so you are carrying both of them, and it creates a lot of internal psychological tension and causes cognitive dissonance. And as the time passes, person finds a way to deal with that. Either you go with your leaders' values and beliefs, or you completely go with yours, or you find a middle ground so that you can carry both of them. So that's how you either update your beliefs with new information, or you go with one of them, or you might, the third thing that happens, you might dissociate it. Like, you have two beliefs and both are very strong, and you're feeling overwhelmed and your brain is not coming to a conclusion, so let's step out of myself. Let's disconnect. So when nobody's watching, I will live the life that I want to live, and when the leaders are watching, I will live the. A lot of people actually do that. I know a lot of people who are actually doing this. They're too afraid, and also they are not able to assert their rights. So when they're around people or leaders who would be watching them, they act in a certain way, and when nobody is watching, they act in the way they want to. So this is also one of the things that they do. And the worst condition that could happen is the person could become totally numb. They don't feel anything. Whatever the situation or environment demands from them, they can do it because they are not feeling anything. They have disconnected themselves from their feelings because it was too overwhelming.
Why do survivors of spiritual abuse often receive mixed, dismissive, or even hostile reactions when they finally speak out about their experiences?
The hostile reactions, the dismissiveness, the invalidation that comes up when someone discloses their experiences of abuse, mistreatment, or any question or confusion they have in their spiritual community, it is not often met with the compassion and empathy. Although there are so
Mm,
many programs that are being run nowadays to achieve that, but still, most of the groups they lack these kind of things. And if
mm,
anyone tries to speak up, tries to be a whistleblower, they are instantly shamed. Why? Because the listener, whether the listener is a leader, a preacher, authority figure, or even a member that is on your level in the hierarchy, the first emotional reaction that people feel is of fear. They are afraid because, as I said, they are also member of the group, and their identity is also fused with the identity of the group. And the moment you say something about the group, about the community, they take it as personal attack,
mm.
as if you're attacking on their identity. Why? Because their identity is the group's identity, so they're acting as a only as a unit of group, and it can bring an existential fear in them also, because they are on also in that position. This group is my everything. They don't want to believe a system they trust could be harmful. They have trusted it with everything, with their emotion, their time, their energy, their spirituality, and they protect their, so they try to protect their worldview by invalidating the survivor. Because I am investing so much in the group, my emotions, energy, time, and everything. I'm preaching on behalf of it. I'm recruiting people. I'm singing the glories of the group to everyone. And suddenly someone says something wrong about it. It means I am wrong. And this feeling that I could be wrong can be very scary. So, to deal with the anxiety coming from the fear of I could be wrong, my choice could be wrong, I could be putting my spiritual life in danger by being a part of group that has flaws, it could be really scary. And the easiest path is to invalidate someone who's saying something against it. Also, people are conditioned to silence. High control groups teach that doubt is equal to sin or betrayal. So, if this person is having doubt because they are sinful, they lack morals or spiritual or ethical values, and you are believing someone like that, if you are believing someone like that who does not have very strong moral values, who's not very strongly committed to the group, who has very strong faith, it means you also have a problem. So you favor this person, it means you too have a problem, and nobody wants to be labeled like that. So there is conditioning to be silent. So any survivor, when comes up with their stories, it triggers the learned defensiveness. They have learned to be defensive. They're always on the guard. they have the moment someone says, or you will see this happening a lot on social media. I see that every day. You try to point out a flaw in a group or community, and suddenly some warriors will come with sword and they will start to fight. This is not true. Everything is flawless in our group. It's you, you're sinful, it's your karma. If anybody would have seen Mahabharata, the see Krishna never shamed Pandavas or Arjun for having any problems in their lives by saying that it's your karma because of which you're facing this. He also always helped them, guided them, and this is how we should be. Whether we are part of a spiritual community or something is happening in your family, when someone comes up with a problem, listen to them, try to validate their feelings. Even if you don't believe in the story, at least validate their feelings. So, but people don't do that because there are fear of consequences. Speaking against the group is dangerous. You could be labeled. Also, the internalized fear that you have. So, listeners feel retaliation. They feel retaliation, social loss, or being labeled as rebellious. So, just by listening or believing in the story of a survivor, you could be labeled as rebellious. Nobody wants that. And also, especially people who are in authority positions, they know that it could be a threat to group hierarchy also. If the person being pointed out, or the so and so person hurt me, or they harmed me, or they are doing something that is ruining the image of the group, anything you bring up about a leader or a person who is useful to the group, then they will try to protect this person at any cost. If this person is bringing a lot of donations, doing a lot of recruitments, has a high authority, charisma, or spiritual status. Survivors exposing abuse threaten the power structure. You cannot, if you if a group has a very good name in the society and people get to know that someone holding a high position has done a sin, a crime, or something wrong, it can harm the image of the group. So the threat to the group hierarchy and the image of group in the outer world is also one of the reasons why people don't believe the survivors. Even if on the inside they do, they won't validate, so that this person will gradually shut down and stop talking about it, and so everybody can mind their own business, and this person, they can deal with their problems themselves, but they will not touch anyone in the hierarchy because this can destabilize or disturb the group. Also, the shame and enmeshment, members feel personally attacked when I say when the group is criticized. Members are enmeshed with the group. They don't see any difference. I am a member of this group, so when someone says something wrong about the group, they are saying about me also because I'm a, so they just come with their swords and start fighting. The confused survivors experience with an attack on their own identity. So a lot of things, fear, the divine fear, the fear of divine retribution, being sinful, labeled morally, or destabilizing the structure, the authority, the spiritual status, or the group hierarchy, and the enmeshment. People not understanding there is a uh, it's like instant response you would see in some people. The moment you say something, they're just ready to fight, to get defensive. It's like an automatic reaction. They are conditioned to save the image of the group. The moment say something, someone says something, you have to get defensive. I have been there, so I know that. I used to get instantly defensive the moment someone says something without even mindfully thinking about what they are talking about. Maybe there is some truth to that. So these are the reasons.
Interesting. When someone begins losing interest in beliefs or practices they once deeply valued, what is actually happening beneath the surface emotionally and psychologically?
A lot of things happen, might not look on the anything on the outside, but anyone who has religious trauma from the toxic faith system, they were a part of, they were a group of trauma, whether it's of any kind, whether it's religious trauma or trauma of any kind, it has same effect on a person. Psychological trauma resulting from anything, including spiritual abuse, has the same effect. When someone experiences psychological trauma, they have anxiety, they have depression, they have cognitive dissonance, they have hypervigilance, and anything in the environment that might seem very ordinary to any ordinary person who does not have that kind of trauma could be very triggering for that person. anything from my environment, a word, a phrase, an object, a scene, a festival, anything, a person, a place can trigger the painful trauma memories for a person. And that's why trauma leads to reduced motivation and reduced ritual engagement. The When someone is associated with the community and they're happily associated and the environment is healthy, they do everything, all the rituals, the practices, they have all the motivation to do. But when they get betrayed in a system and they leave that system, it becomes very difficult to continue the same practices that they used to do at that time, because they remind them of the times when they were being betrayed there. Even if you were happy in those times, now you see that even though I was feeling happy, but I was being betrayed, I was being manipulated, I was being exploited in some ways. So it reminds you of the days when you were innocent and you believed in everything, but you were being betrayed. So now you don't feel like doing that, not because you hate God or the rituals, but they remind you of the time, the you know and it doesn't um, physically, it happens a long time after you leave that environment. But you know what, your heart leaves before the mind admits it, before you consciously start to accept that I don't want to do this because it reminds me of painful memories. Long before that, your heart has been signaling, I don't want to do this. But people continue to do so. The ritual engagement, people continue to engage in the rituals long after their heart says no, it's not right. The moment this cognitive dissonance, the internal conflict arises, heart starts to say no, I don't want to do this. But heart says it very silently, because it knows that you won't listen to it. It keeps on saying on you, say no, I don't want to do this, I don't feel right. But the doctrine wraps around us, and it forces us, coerces us into doing that, because there is so much fear of divine loss, of fear of spiritual losses, fear of emotional punishment by the authorities in your group. They are the things that make you continue being loyal to the rituals and the group and everything. But the heart keeps saying no, I don't feel right. So the emotional disengagement happens before cognitive disengagement, and emotional exhaustion, betrayal, fatigue, or burnout slowly detaches the person. Slowly, a point comes when you consciously become aware that you don't want to do this. But you know what? The shame and the guilt is always there. It was there when you didn't feel like, but you were doing them. And it becomes intensified when you take a conscious decision. Your mind takes a conscious decision, I don't want to do this. And there can be intermediate phase where you want to do it, but your subconscious protects you. So your losing interest is a protective mechanism you created by your nervous system. It creates space to rebuild from a healthier place later. Your nervous system wants you to stop doing everything that's bringing the painful memories from the past, so that you can heal. And once you heal, now in a safe space, you can again reconnect with God on your terms. So, nervous system says no more. Body begins rejecting what feels unsafe or oppressive. Fight or flight or freeze mechanism of your nervous system gets activated around formal spiritual practices. Sometimes it's not always fear, it could be shame. Like you're doing something and suddenly you feel a little bit of shame or anger on your subconscious, and you don't realize it, and suddenly you feel demotivated. I know some people who are going through this. They are not able to do continue with their old practices, and they don't know why. And when I question them, I get to realize that they were going through their day and they were thinking of doing this ritual, and suddenly a hint of shame came from somewhere. Shame for trusting a system that betraying them, or anger for listening to or for letting someone guide them who later on exploited them. Any hint of shame, guilt, or any negative emotional experience can put you into fight or flight or freeze mode, and you freeze and you procrastinate and you don't want to do any of that, and you think that I am lazy, I am falling spiritually, I am falling morally. This is how they people lose interest, and but they don't know, they think that it's their moral failure. So there is loss of interest, is often the loss of interest is often grief and not apathy. People are grieving a part of them who once used to believe in all these things. So I had a part of me maybe who still believes in all that. I am grieving that because I know that it was all built on lies. So this is how it's the nervous system's protective mechanism. It tries to save you from more pain, from more emotional pain or mental exhaustion of sorting out the beliefs. So it freezes you temporarily and wants you to actually take rest so that you can heal. And once you heal, you can again carry out these things on your terms, only a part of it which is healing and healthy for you.
How can intrusive thoughts, fear-based thinking, or compulsive spiritual behaviors develop after leaving high control or spiritually abusive environments?
The there is a constant teaching of God is seeing everything, and you have to please the leader. And even if the nobody is watching you, and you are part of this group, and everybody has to be a certain way. So even when nobody is watching, you are watching. When nobody is watching, you are watching yourself. Gradually, it becomes your habit, and so your brain creates an internalized surveillance system, and you are always in hyper vigilant mode. You're always keeping a check on you. It's like a CCTV is running everything that you're doing, and you are yourself monitoring it very critically, lacking empathy for yourself. So mind keeps monitoring itself to avoid punishment and any spiritual harm. I must always act in a way that is aligned with the teachings of my group. If I deviate from that, it will cause me spiritual harm, and I don't want any spiritual harm, because if someone is a serious spiritual seeker, they don't want to do anything that will harm their spiritual life. And so they believe that I must be monitoring myself all the time. And even when people leave this, it's not that suddenly the program will shut down. It takes a lot of time for that programming to be uninstalled from your brain. The brain repeats the old habits, all the rituals that one used to do, avoiding any impure thoughts. People become hyper vigilant even of their thoughts. If I'm having question, if I'm having a doubt, if I'm supporting another survivor, I must be I must watch myself, my thoughts, how I'm seeing things, if they are impure, if they are sinful. So I want anyone who is going through, I want you to know that these are trauma loops, not spiritual devotion. Always checking your thoughts, always worrying excessively about wrong, fallen, sinful, impure. If you're always constantly um, focusing on what you're thinking, what you're feeling, how you're acting, it can create. You used to do that in when you were in the system, so it creates trauma imprinted fear inside you. It's like fear pathways get created that keep on firing even when you have abandoned those beliefs. In the group, you had those beliefs, and that's why this neural pathways got created, that when something happens, I have to think like this, I have to feel like this, and I have to act like this. If any question arises, I have to feel ashamed of myself. If I have a doubt, I have to pray harder so that the doubt goes away. If a survivor comes up with, if a whistleblower comes up, I have to immediately invalidate them. So this is how I have to act, and so it creates some automatic neural pathways in your brain. And now, when you know that all that was wrong, that was wrong teaching, and I don't want to carry these beliefs anymore. When you have intellectually rejected those beliefs, even after that, those fear pathways keep on firing. That's the problem. So the brain goes into an automation. You keep on scanning your brain, thoughts, feelings, emotions all the time. The fear of sin,
Mhm.
hell, karma, divine punishment stays stuck in your nervous system. It's not that you are thinking consciously and behaving in that way. It is something that becomes a part of your nervous system. And so sometimes when someone is having thoughts which they think according to their previous belief system is sinful, they would get up and go and do some ritual that proves that they are not sinful. This is exactly what happens in OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, in which person has intrusive thought which gives them anxiety, and to relieve that anxiety they do an action that helps relieve that anxiety. So the thought could be, I am sinful, or I am not, I lack faith in God. For example, I am sick, I'm very sick, oh my child is very sick and I cannot get up from bed and cook or serve to my deities food. And I have this thought that people who eat without offering to deities, they are eating sin. They don't love their deities, they are not dedicated enough. So I am very sick, I cannot get up from bed, I cannot cook from deities, I will have thought that I lack faith in God. See, they were right, I lack in God, and it will now give me a lot of anxiety, because I for me my spiritual life is very important, so it will give me a lot of anxiety. And what do I do with this anxiety? I want to relieve this anxiety. So even when I cannot get up from my bed, I will get up, I will torture myself, I will get up and I will go and offer something. And I think that it will make God happy. And now I'm relieved because I have proved that no, I do not lack faith. This is exactly the kind of action that people who have OCD take place. That's why we call it moral OCD. I had an intrusive thought, I had an anxiety, then I took an action, a compulsive action to, to relieve that anxiety. Classic OCD response. So that's how the intrusive thoughts come, because I have hypervigilance of myself. I have an internalized surveillance system. The fear pathways are firing themselves. And people also develop learned helplessness. The in toxic faith system, you are not allowed to use your brain. You're told to do not use your brain. It's you should not be trusting your own senses, your own brains. Do as we say. So it leads to compulsive rituals to feel safe or protected. That's what you were conditioned to do, so and so to prove that you're worthy. Do so and so to prove that you have faith. You are a good follower. You are a good believer. Now the say all these things combine and create. It's also called as religious OCD. When you are having intrusive thoughts, then anxiety, then you take a compulsive action and it relieves the anxiety. But it does not cures it. The more you do the compulsive action in response to the intrusive thought, the more it get intensified and the more it get reinforced. People need therapy for this, to get rid of this, or a lot of insight into what's going on. People need to challenge their thoughts, their beliefs, and people also need a lot of tools, psychological tools, to help with these type of intrusive thoughts and compulsive behaviors.
That's true. What is the difference between spiritual panic and genuine awakening, and why are the two so often confused during the healing process?
Spiritual panic and genuine awakening, they both happen after destabilizing events. So this is similarity, and they both challenge old beliefs. And trauma mimics intuition. People who have trauma, a lot of times they think that they are having intuition, but that's trauma. So people misread fear as spiritual warning. As I say, in the intrusive thoughts that I was talking about, the fear that I am not, I lack faith, it's actually fear coming from the trauma that you have, but you think it's spiritual warning. God is giving me a sign so that I can get up and serve him and prove my worthiness to him. So the spiritual panic, it is triggered by fear, guilt, or conditioning. On the other hand, genuine awakening, it arises from curiosity, clarity, and inner truth. The spiritual panic, it feels urgent, catastrophic, and shame driven. You would know, you would feel a lot of fear. something wrong is going to happen. I have to do it urgently, and it will be driven by a lot of shame. On the other hand, when you are having genuine awakening, it feels expansive, calm, grounding, and even if it's uncomfortable, you would know that it's allowing you to expand yourself. It does not forces you to shrink yourself. Spiritual panic, on the other hand, it comes with bodily symptoms like racing heart, tight chest, dread. On the other hand, genuine awakening, you gain freedom and you do not feel any fear on the inside. In spiritual panic, the focus is on control, safety, and not offending God. As I said, that intrusive thought about offering. And in the genuine awakening, the mind opens instead of shutting down. So, uh, if I have to say, summarize in one sentence, I would say that spiritual panic, it shrinks you, it comes out of fear, and you feel distressed when the spiritual panic happens, and you perform out of spiritual panic to feel the safety again, and out of fear of not offending God. On the other hand, genuine awakening, when genuine awakening happens, people would always know that I am awakening, because it gives you clarity, inner truth. You feel more relaxed, you feel automatically safe inside you when that happens.
Lastly, how can individuals rebuild a healthy sense of identity and inner stability after experiencing the collapse of beliefs, trust, or spiritual uncertainty?
So first of all, people need to reconnect with their body, because in toxic faith system or any kind of toxic environments, domestic abuse, child abuse, every kind of toxic environment, the perpetrators would want you to abandon yourself.
Mm.
And for abandoning yourself, you need to disconnect yourself from your body. You have to ignore your gut feelings, your intuitions, feelings that you feel in your body. People who have been through trauma, if you ask them where do you feeling your what's the feeling that in the initial days of counseling and therapy, when you ask someone what are you feeling right now, most of the people are not even able to name the feeling that they are feeling. There are a lot of a range of emotions and feelings, but people are not able to name them. In the later stages, when they are able to identify the emotion, we ask them, where do you feel in this body? Someone who's connected with their body, they can always tell, I can feel fear here, or I can feel the anxiety in my stomach, or I have tension in my jaws, like that. So it's very important to first of all connect with your body. If you have been through any kind of trauma, please connect with your body. It can be very empowering. You will not easily go into fight or flight mode if you are connected with your body. So it can be achieved by doing grounding exercises, somatic therapies, somatic exercises, and breath work. Breath work can be very powerful. Grounding also, it builds safety from the inside. When you start to, you need to feel inside safe, first of all, inside your body. Like you would have seen people before appearing on a stage or going for an interview, people do deep breathing. Why? Because before appearing in front of someone, your body is in fight or flight mode. You have a racing heart, perspiration, breathing that is dysregulated, and so the body is feeling the fear. And the deep breathing exercise, the breath work, it allows your body to feel safe on the inside. And when you do that, you can see how much difference it brings. So if when someone does that regularly, it would allow them to feel safe inside their body permanently. Then reclaiming internal authority, learning to trust your intuitions one again. And you cannot make a very big decision in the beginning. It can be frightening for someone who lost their autonomy, critical thinking, and independence in environments like that. It can be scary at first. So take small decisions, make low risk choices, one choice a day. And if it went well, it will give you a confidence in yourself that yes, you can trust yourself. Then deconstructing and reconstructing, gently questioning the inherited beliefs. The beliefs that you have carried, take one belief at a time. Do not question everything at once. It can overwhelm you. Take one belief in one day and question it, and see what are the facts that are that support it, and what are the facts that are against it. And so you can conclude if you want to carry this one or you want to leave, and then go to a next belief. So that's how you gently question all of your beliefs and decide which one you want to carry. Also, you can rebuild a personal philosophy that aligns with your autonomy and compassion. You can choose from your previous faith system, from a new faith system. You can develop your own. You can have your own philosophy. You have, but it should be based on compassion and your autonomy. But compassion should always be there. I don't, some in some religious, I don't want to name, but they have the philosophy where hurting other people, harming other people is justified. It's never justified. If your philosophy or your religious values uh, justify harming other people, it should be based on, always based on compassion. So as long as it is based on compassion, it's not harming anyone, it's not harming any you, you are allowed to choose that. So you can rebuild your own philosophy, your own spiritual philosophy. Then community healing. So until now I've been talking about how to connect with yourself, with divine, and developing your beliefs. But then another important part of healing is building a community also. You lost touch with the outside world, that then you abandon your group. So people in this stage, when they are in crisis of faith, they are practically very lonely. And for healing, it's very important to have people around you who validate you, who support you. So you can find safe non-judgment relationships. You can even join Facebook support groups. There you can find amazing people who support you, validate you, who've been through what you've been through. So there will be mutual support and validation. And so it can help you repair the social wounds created by this spiritual abuse and abandonment from the members, and the social loss that happened because of you leaving that group. And then next thing is it's very very important. Toxic environment, they make you believe that your self-worth is associated with the um, it's somehow it's controlled by the perpetrators or the abusive people. So the, when we say the rebuilding self-worth, affirm, you can use affirmation that remind you that you have a worth to God, and it's intrinsic, and it does not depend on anything external, and it definitely does not depends upon your spiritual performance. So affirming that your value is intrinsic and not dependent on compliance as it was in that toxic environment. So you can work with a trauma informed psychologist. You can use free resources. You can even create affirmations for yourself, and you can write it on a piece of paper, put somewhere where you can read it. And affirmations could be something like, I have worth to God, and God does not want me to prove that worth by performing, something like that. I don't need to perform spiritually, or I don't need to uh, comply to my leader's authority, or my self-worth is not enslaved to my relationship with someone. It's an intrinsic thing, and I already have a self-worth. So this is how you can develop your self-worth, and you can start to believe in it. And the last one, and the most important one, is integrating spirituality in a healthy way. When you are able to connect with yourself, when you start to develop your own healthy beliefs, when you are deconstructing the old beliefs and reconstructing new ones, and when you gradually reclaim your internal authority, then you can move ahead and develop a new relationship with divine. And from your old belief system, you can keep whatever resonates and leave what does not, and you can move towards a spiritual life that allows you to expand yourself, that's freeing, that is based on freedom and not fear, that makes you are not always afraid, guilty and ashamed, and um, uh, you know surveilling yourself, your thoughts, your feelings all the time, scared and worried and hyper vigilant. That's not spirituality. Develop a spirituality that allows you to feel free, so that you can relax, your mind can relax, you can focus on other things, your relationships, your family life, your work, and you can be happy. And a spirituality that makes you feel empowered on the inside.
All I got to say is thanks so much for your time, Anu, and I'll see you for the next one.
Thank you.